Australia has always done things its own way. While the rest of the world chased German engineering and Italian flair, Australians were building massive V8-powered luxury machines that could swallow a family, cruise in total silence, and still tow a caravan on the weekend. Welcome to the greatest Aussie luxury cars ever made. The VR Caprice wasn't just a car, it was a bittersweet farewell. Arriving in 1994, it served as the grand finale of a bloodline that began decades earlier. For years, Aussies loved their proudly brick-shaped barges. But the VR, it was slick, aerodynamic, and genuinely world-class. Holden finally built a cruiser that could look European heavyweights in the eye without blinking. The interior was plush, the tech was current, yet it fiercely protected that stretch-your-legs, rear-seat comfort Aussie families cherished. It didn't just continue a legacy, it gave it the respect it deserved. When the VR rolled off the line, everyone knew the golden era of big Aussie luxury was closing. It was a beautiful, fitting goodbye to a dynasty. This Ford was a definitive statement from the Blue Oval. This wasn't just a vehicle, it was a rolling corner office. Government fleets bought them up immediately, and corporate executives happily ditched their expensive European imports. Why? Because the DA offered long wheelbase swagger at a price that actually made financial sense. The rear cabin was incredibly spacious, offering genuine stretch-out room, and the build quality was arguably the best Ford Australia had ever achieved. It communicated quiet, undeniable authority without needing to shout about it. Ford proved they could build a world-class luxury tank that stood perfectly on its own. Not bad for a brand originally built on churning out working-class family haulers. 2 cars down and we are already looking at some heavy-hitting executive machinery. But trust me, we are barely scratching the surface. Coming up, we have a forgotten underdog, a literal boardroom on wheels, and land yachts so gigantic they needed their own postcodes. By 1988, the classic Fairlane formula was practically collecting a pension. The NA had one desperate job: drag this aging dinosaur into the modern era before buyers walked away, and Ford completely delivered. They slapped in slick fuel injection, cleaned up the exterior styling, and added an interior that finally looked like it belonged in the late 80s. The ride, smoother than a jazz saxophonist. Ford magically kept that traditional rear seat experience, but quietly upgraded the tech surrounding it. Making a decades-old grandpa car feel fresh is almost impossible, but Ford made it look easy. In 1984, the VK Calais politely tapped the Aussie luxury industry on the shoulder and whispered, "We need to talk." This wasn't a bloated, stretched-out sedan. It was a Commodore wearing a very expensive tailored suit. European cars were gaining serious ground, so instead of building something bigger, Holden built something much smarter. Armed with those glorious electronic digital dashboards and improved build quality, it made older luxury cars look instantly dated. It redefined the category overnight. Suddenly, luxury in Australia didn't just mean driving a floating boat. It meant refined, high-tech, and properly equipped. The VK quietly changed the entire direction of luxury cars in Australia. The Calais changed the formula, but the cars coming up built the concrete foundation it parked on. Wait until you see the forgotten Chrysler that history did dirty. Plus, the unapologetic chrome-dipped street boats are still to come. Let's be honest, this car looked less like a car and more like a ruthless corporate takeover on wheels. Arriving in a boxy, strictly formal suit, it wasn't trying to be trendy or aerodynamic. It just wanted to be the most terrifyingly authoritative vehicle in the executive car park. Politicians practically lived in them. Business leaders demanded them. If you needed to make the competition tremble upon your arrival, you bought this one. The rear cabin was basically a VIP lounge, and the interior had better carpeting than most actual houses. Ford Australia knew exactly who was buying this intimidating machine. and they delivered a serious boardroom on wheels without a single compromise. If you are enjoying watching this video, give it a like if you want, it means a lot to me. This Fairlane arrived with a genuinely tricky task: bridge the awkward gap between the bulky, excessive 70s and the restrained, sensible 80s. Honestly, it pulled this transition off beautifully. The styling was instantly sharper, slicing through the air much better than its heavier predecessors. The ride remained incredibly comfortable, but you could finally feel a sneaky hint of European handling creeping in. Ford was clearly peaking at overseas rivals. Mechanically, it was well sorted, surprisingly quiet, and thankfully marginally easier to park, a fantastic bonus for buyers tired of wrestling massive steering wheels. It upgraded the daily driving experience without losing a drop of its core identity. We are officially into the top 6, the premium section. This is where the true land yachts dock, where the chrome was thickest, and where Aussie luxury reaches its absolute peak. Do not blink, because we are entering undisputed royalty territory. By 1980, the massive, fuel-chugging land yacht era was approaching its magnificent peak. This Caprice was the crowning achievement. This was the last of the truly enormous Aussie luxury barges, and it made absolutely zero apologies for its size. It was huge, V8 powered, and designed purely to make you feel incredibly important. The suspension wasn't tuned for handling corners. It was tuned for floating over the tarmac like a hovercraft. Inside, you were completely surrounded by thick velour, wood grain accents, and buttery, soft leather. Every single switch and dial sent the same message: slow down, you have arrived. Driving this beast made you want to wear a top hat and drive somewhere important. It marked the epic finale of an era of excess. Australia built its definitive road boat, then quietly moved on. The CH Chrysler was launched under the gloriously redundant name Chrysler by Chrysler, and history has done this legendary car so dirty. It was genuinely one of the most incredibly equipped luxury cars ever built in Australia. Chrysler absolutely stuffed it with space-age features that Holden and Ford were still scratching their heads over. We are talking electric windows, premium air conditioning, and a phenomenal ride quality. The refinement was completely off the charts. It possessed a bold, wraparound front grille that absolutely demanded attention. It was a true heavyweight champion that buyers tragically ignored. Why did it fade into obscurity? Maybe the weird name sounded less like a badass V8 and more like a nervous law firm. Regardless, it remains an absolute icon. Just 4 cars left. Every single one of these is a heavyweight champion of Australian motoring history. We have got an epic battle ahead. 2 legendary Fords, 2 iconic Holdens, and the ultimate rivalry that defined a nation. If the Fairlane was Ford playing nice, this one was Ford violently screaming, "We are taking over the world." This absolute beast was longer, quieter, and infinitely more exclusive than anything else wearing a blue oval badge. We are talking genuine, undisputed limousine territory. The P6 was laser-targeted at wealthy executives and government hotshots whose cars needed to command absolute respect. The rear legroom was practically infinite, easily accommodating the tallest politicians. The interior materials were a massive step up, radiating quiet, menacing power. It even featured hidden pop-up headlights that gave it an incredibly sinister look. You absolutely did not want to see this thing aggressively tailgating you in the fast lane. Ford put the Fairlane on a medieval stretching rack and created Australia's first true limo. It wore that crown flawlessly. Holden had the Statesman, which meant Ford had a massive, terrifying problem. Their answer? This legendary Fairlane. And holy cow, what an absolute masterpiece it was. This car was big, outrageously comfortable, and unapologetically built for the VIPs lounging in the back seat. Forget about driving dynamics or hitting apexes. This was a car for people who paid someone else to drive. You could stretch out, read the morning paper, and arrive looking like $1 million without spilling a drop of coffee. Ford basically engineered a high-speed living room sofa, and Australia completely lost its mind over it. Sales absolutely exploded, leaving rivals frantically scrambling in its wake. It set a benchmark so incredibly high that Ford themselves struggled to beat it. With a thumping V8 under the hood, it proved true. Luxury is an absolute state of mind. Down to the final two, the absolute titans of the Aussie luxury world. The car that set the gold standard and the glorious chrome-drenched pioneer that started the entire revolution. Number 1 is going to completely blow your mind. If earlier attempts were rough pencil sketches, the HQ Statesman was the absolute Mona Lisa of Australian motoring. Built from a totally clean sheet, it boasted a stretched wheelbase, a whisper-quiet cabin, and a ride so heavenly you'd completely forget you were on tough Aussie roads. The HQ birthed the legendary Statesman name that would dominate luxury car sales for decades to come. It introduced a level of sophisticated elegance that local cruisers had never seen before. Even modern luxury cars could learn a thing or two from its majestic, imposing presence. Between the impossibly plush velour seats, improved acoustics, and that undeniable smell of raw success, it was an undisputed knockout. Getting the luxury formula this unbelievably perfect on the very first real try is mind-blowing. It remains the rock-solid foundation stone of the entire Aussie luxury car movement. Taking the gold medal is the undisputed godfather of them all, the 1970 Holden Brougham HG. Long before Holden had a dedicated luxury lineup, there was this absolute beast. For a company famous for churning out basic, rugged family haulers, their first stab at pure opulence was unbelievably good. The Brougham rocked up with a hilariously stretched body, a roaring V8, and an interior that finally made passengers feel like literal royalty. It unapologetically flaunted its wealth at a time when boring practicality was the norm. This magnificent dinosaur single-handedly taught an entire nation how to legally show off. Holden blatantly copied the American land yacht homework and made it perfectly Australian. It had enough blinding chrome on the exterior to actually fry the retinas of oncoming traffic. Without the legendary HG Brougham risking it all, the Aussie luxury era would never have existed. It is the absolute, unquestionable king. Australia proved you don't need European badges to build absolute automotive royalty. Type your favorite rolling living room in the comments. Click that like button and subscribe. It means a lot to me. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.